The Nevada desert stretched endlessly before Marcus Webb's headlights, a black void punctuated only by the faint star-scattered sky. It was 2:47 a.m. on Highway 50, the loneliest road in America, and Marcus was beginning to understand why they called it that. He'd been driving for 6 hours straight, hauling auto parts from Reno to a depot in Ely, and hadn't seen another vehicle in over an hour. The figure appeared suddenly in his high beams, standing on the shoulder with one thumb extended. Marcus's foot moved instinctively toward the brake. Company policy was clear: no hitchhikers, ever, but something about the situation felt wrong. The temperature gauge on his dashboard read 34 degrees. The figure wore only a thin white dress that seemed to glow in the darkness. Marcus pulled over, already knowing he'd regret it. She couldn't have been more than 19, with long dark hair and bare feet despite the freezing temperature. When she climbed into the cab, Marcus noticed she wasn't shivering. She smelled like rain, which was impossible because it hadn't rained in Nevada for weeks. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to get to mile marker 167. My family is waiting." Marcus checked his GPS. Mile marker 167 was 32 miles ahead. "What were you doing out here?" She didn't answer, just stared straight ahead through the windshield. Marcus turned up the heat, unnerved by her stillness. As he pulled back onto the highway, he tried making conversation, but she remained silent, her hands folded neatly in her lap. 20 minutes passed. The radio had been playing classic rock, but suddenly it dissolved into static. Marcus reached to change the station when the girl spoke. "This is where it happened." "Where what happened?" "The accident. July 15th, 1987. Marcus felt ice in his veins. That was almost 40 years ago." "You weren't even born." She turned to look at him for the first time, and Marcus nearly swerved off the road. Her eyes were completely black, no whites, no iris, just endless darkness. "I was 17. We were driving to Ely for my birthday. A semi-truck crossed the center line. My parents and little brother died instantly. I was thrown from the vehicle. They never found my body." Marcus's hands were shaking on the wheel. "This isn't funny." "Get out at the next. Mile marker 167, she interrupted. "We're almost there." The marker appeared in the headlights. Marcus pulled over, his heart hammering. When he turned to tell her to leave, the passenger seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. She had simply vanished. On the seat where she'd been sitting was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. Marcus picked it up with trembling fingers. The headline read, "4 dead in Highway 50 collision." Below was a photo of a teenage girl with long dark hair. Her name was Catherine Reeves, age 17. Marcus drove the remaining distance to Ely in silence, the clipping on the dashboard. When he arrived at the depot, he asked the night manager about the accident. The old man's face went pale. "You saw her? Catherine? Christ, I thought those stories were just trucker legends." He pulled out a logbook from 1987. "That accident happened at 2:47 a.m. You know what time it is now?" Marcus checked his watch. 2:47 a.m. exactly. "Every night, same time, same place," the manager said. "She's been trying to get home for 37 years. But here's the thing, everyone who picks her up, they check the accident report afterward. Mile marker 167 isn't where the accident happened. It's where her body was finally found, 3 months later, after the spring thaw. She'd been thrown into a ravine. She was trying to walk home when she died." Marcus never drove Highway 50 again. He requested different routes, took a pay cut to avoid that stretch of road. But sometimes, late at night, he still smells rain in his truck's cabin, and the radio dissolves to static at exactly 2:47 a.m., no matter what highway he's on. Jennifer Chun pulled into the rest stop on I-70 through Kansas at just past midnight, desperate for coffee and a bathroom break. She'd been driving for 14 hours, relocating from Colorado to her new job in St. Louis, and her body was screaming for rest. The rest stop appeared suddenly, a bright oasis in the darkness, with clean-looking facilities and several cars in the parking lot. As she walked toward the building, Jennifer noticed something odd. The other vehicles were all older models, nothing newer than the early 2000s, a Ford Taurus with a faded Clinton Gore bumper sticker, a Chevy Cavalier with a Y2K ready window decal. She shrugged it off. Maybe classic car enthusiasts were meeting up. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed with an intensity that made her eyes water. The coffee station offered Folgers in a glass pot, not the usual Starbucks dispenser she'd seen at every rest stop for the past decade. The walls were covered in faded posters, advertising concerts from 1999 and 2000. Behind the vending machines, she could hear voices low, urgent conversations that stopped when she approached. Jennifer used the bathroom, grateful it was clean despite the dated fixtures. When she emerged, she noticed a family sitting at one of the tables, a mother, father, and 2 young children. They were eating sandwiches from a cooler and speaking in hushed tones. The mother kept checking her watch, a digital Casio that Jennifer recognized from her own childhood. "Excuse me," Jennifer said, approaching their table. "Do you know if there's another rest stop ahead? One with maybe more food options?" The mother looked up, her face pale and drawn. "How did you get here?" "I drove off the interstate." The father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the linoleum. "What year is it?" Jennifer laughed nervously. "What?" "It's 2023. Are you okay?" The woman started crying. The children stared at Jennifer with wide, uncomprehending eyes. The father grabbed Jennifer's arm. "Please, we've been here since New Year's Eve, 1999. We stopped for a bathroom break during Y2K when we came out. The interstate was gone. Every time we try to leave, we end up back here." "What's the date?" "Let go of me," Jennifer said, pulling away. Her rational mind tried to process this. They were confused. Maybe on drugs? Definitely not trapped for 24 years. "It's December 8th, 2023. You need to call someone for help." She walked quickly back to her car, unsettled. But as she reached the parking lot, she stopped. Her Prius was surrounded by the older vehicles she'd noticed earlier, and now she could see people in them. Dozens of people, all sitting perfectly still, staring straight ahead. In one van, an elderly couple wore matching Mickey Mouse sweatshirts with 2000 emblazoned across them. In a sedan, a businessman in a suit still gripped his brick-sized cell phone. Jennifer ran back to her car and started the engine. She needed to get back to the interstate, now, but as she drove toward the exit, the road seemed to curve back on itself. She found herself approaching the rest stop again from the opposite direction. She tried 3 more times, each attempt ending with her headlights illuminating that same building with its 2 bright, fluorescent lights. On her 4th attempt, she noticed a man standing near the entrance, waving frantically. She stopped, rolling down her window slightly. "Don't turn off your engine," he shouted. "Keep it running, drive straight toward that tree line behind the building. Don't look at the road. Don't follow any signs. Just drive straight, even when it feels wrong." "Who are you?" "I'm a state trooper." "Was a state trooper?" "I came here in 2003 investigating missing persons reports. 15 people had disappeared from this rest stop over the years. I thought I'd find evidence. Now I'm part of it." He looked back at the building nervously. "You have to go now. Once you come inside 3 times, you can't leave. You've been inside once. Don't come back in." Jennifer didn't wait for further explanation. She aimed her car at the tree line he'd indicated and pressed the accelerator. Her GPS screamed warnings about leaving the road. The car bounced over grass and gravel. She closed her eyes and drove blind for what felt like minutes, but was probably seconds. When she opened them, she was on the interstate's shoulder, her car half in the grass. Behind her, there was nothing but darkness and empty fields. No rest stop. No lights. No building. Jennifer drove straight through to St. Louis without stopping, even when her bladder felt like it would burst. When she arrived, she researched rest stops on 170. There was no rest stop in the area where she'd pulled over. According to state records, there had never been one there. But when she dug deeper into old newspaper archives, she found it, a rest stop that had been built in 1997 and mysteriously closed on January 1st, 2000. The official explanation was budget cuts, but a note in the article mentioned that several travelers had reported temporal anomalies and navigational difficulties. 15 people were reported missing in that area between 1999 and 2003. All of them were last seen at that rest stop. None were ever found. Thomas Rutherford first noticed the convoy on Interstate 80 through Wyoming at 3 a.m. on a moonless October night. He was hauling cattle feed from Omaha to Salt Lake City, his 18th year as a long-haul trucker, and he prided himself on never being spooked by the strange things the road threw at him. He'd seen accidents, breakdowns, coyotes in the headlights, even the aftermath of a small plane crash. But he'd never seen anything like this. The first truck appeared in his mirrors, matching his speed exactly, a semi with no company markings, just plain white. Thomas slowed down. The truck behind him slowed down. He sped up to 75. The white truck maintained the same distance, perhaps 50 yards back. Then a second truck pulled alongside him in the passing lane, another unmarked white semi. It kept perfect pace with him, not passing, not falling back. Thomas felt his chest tighten. He grabbed his CB radio. "Breaker, breaker, this is Tomcat. Anybody out there? Got 2 white semis playing games with me on 80. Mile marker 235. Anybody else seeing this?" Static answered him. He tried different channels. Nothing. A third truck appeared ahead of him, slowing until Thomas nearly rear-ended it. Now he was boxed in. One in front, one behind, one beside him. His cattle bellowed nervously in the trailer, sensing his fear. Thomas tried to brake hard and fall behind all of them, but the truck behind him matched his deceleration perfectly, staying exactly 50 yards back. He tried to speed up and pass the one in front, but it accelerated smoothly, maintaining the gap. They drove like this for 20 miles. Thomas's hands ached from gripping the wheel. He tried the CB again and again. The radio worked. He could hear the hiss of static, but no one responded. Then the trucks began to close in. Slowly, methodically, they tightened the formation. The one beside him drifted closer. The one ahead slowed by a single mile per hour. The one behind crept forward. Thomas's breathing became ragged. They were going to crush him. He was certain of it. This was some kind of organized attack, though for what purpose he couldn't imagine. "What do you want?" He screamed into the CB, not expecting an answer. The radio crackled. A voice came through, distorted and strange, like it was coming from underwater. "Exit 211. Take exit 211. Thomas checked his GPS. Exit 211 was 8 miles ahead, leading to absolutely nothing, no town, no rest stop, just a dark Wyoming highway that wound into the mountains. "Why? Who are you?" No answer. The trucks continued to close in. Thomas could now see the driver of the truck beside him, or rather, he couldn't see a driver. The cab was dark, empty. No silhouette, no dashboard lights, nothing. His stomach lurched. 5 miles to exit 211. The trucks were so close now that Thomas couldn't change lanes if he tried. He was trapped in a moving cage of white metal. 3 miles. His cattle were screaming, throwing themselves against the trailer walls. Some primal part of their brains understood the danger better than Thomas's rational mind wanted to accept. 1 mile, Thomas made a decision. He would take the exit. Anything was better than being crushed on the interstate. He signaled and began to merge toward the off-ramp. The trucks parted smoothly, professionally, giving him just enough room. As he descended the ramp, he watched his mirrors. The 3 white trucks continued on the interstate, their taillights disappearing into the darkness. The exit led to a 2-lane highway cutting through absolute blackness. No streetlights, no buildings, nothing. Thomas drove slowly, every instinct screaming at him to turn around. But when he checked his mirrors, A fourth white truck had appeared behind him, blocking any retreat. After 5 miles, his headlights illuminated something ahead. Trucks. Dozens of them, parked in perfect rows in an empty field beside the road. All white Senus. All identical. All dark and silent. Thomas stopped. He had to stop. Blocking the road ahead was another white truck, parked sideways across both lanes. The CB crackled again. Get out. Walk to the field. They're waiting. Who's waiting? What is this? The drivers? The ones who didn't take the exit. Thomas's blood turned to ice. He looked at the field of trucks again and saw them now, figures standing between the vehicles. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all perfectly still. I'm not getting out, Thomas said into the CB. Then you join the convoy. Drive until there's no road left. That's the only other choice. As if to emphasize the point, the truck behind him revved its engine. The one blocking the road ahead began to back up, creating a path that led deeper into the darkness beyond the field. Thomas looked at his fuel gauge. 3/4 full. He could drive for hours. But to where? And then what? A new voice came over the CB. Weaker. More human. Please help us. We're still alive. They keep us in the trailers. We can't die, but we can't leave. Thomas grabbed his phone. No signal. He tried to start recording, to document this, but his phone screen went black and wouldn't turn back on. The truck ahead continued backing up. The path was clear now, leading to a road that seemed to descend into the earth itself. Thomas made his choice. He wrenched the wheel hard, driving off the road into the scrub grass, bouncing violently over the terrain. His cattle screamed. The suspension groaned. He aimed for a gap between two of the parked trucks. The white trucks came alive. Engines roared in the darkness. Headlights blazed on, turning night into day. They began to move, converging on his position. Thomas floored it. His truck wasn't designed for off-roading, but fear gave him precision. He wove between the white trucks as they tried to box him in again. He could see the drivers now, or the absence of drivers. Every single truck was empty, driving itself. He broke through the line and found himself on another dirt path. He followed it blindly, praying it would lead back to civilization. Behind him, the white trucks had stopped, at the edge of the field. They didn't pursue, just sat there with their lights on, watching him escape. Thomas drove for 3 hours on back roads, before he found Interstate 80 again, 50 miles east of where he'd taken exit 211. When he checked his trailer, 3 of his cattle were dead, apparently from stress-induced heart attacks. He reported the incident to the Wyoming Highway Patrol. They humored him politely and said they'd look into it. When Thomas drove back past exit 211 2 weeks later in daylight, there was no exit. The mile markers jumped from 210 to 212. But sometimes, late at night on empty interstates, Thomas sees white trucks in his mirrors. They never get too close now, never box him in. They just follow at a distance, patient and persistent, waiting for the night, when he's too tired to notice which exit he takes, or when his GPS leads him down a dark road that shouldn't exist. He knows they're still looking for drivers to join their convoy, and he knows that someday, despite his vigilance, he might take a wrong turn and end up in that field, another empty truck among hundreds, driving roads that exist only in darkness.